Let's talk about the supplies first because they matter a lot in hyperrealism. This is my Staedtler Mars Lumograph Black 6B pencil. I have generals, medium, and soft charcoal. I have 2 small makeup brushes, and I have my white ink pen, which I will use later. This is my reference photo right here, and I have a very detailed initial draft because details are important in your draft when you are doing hyperrealism. The first thing I want to mention is the first layer. For the first layer, I use charcoal because you can blend it and get different shades of gray very easily. Once we get the first base right, then we can add the details much more easily. And for blending, I use Q-tip, but you can use a blending stump as well. There is a difference though between these blending tools and the result. I had made a video about this. If you want to watch it, it's on the right top corner right now. By blending with this Q-tip, you can see that the skin had a much more realistic look. But if you want smoother transitions between the shadow and the midtones, then you can use your brushes. But don't forget, brush will tone down your drawing. This is gonna be the most difficult part because you see there are so many details on the skin. You have crevices and you have all these different cells on the skin. There are many, varieties between the light and the shadow. So we need to give all these details. This is the most difficult part of hyperrealism, if you ask me. And now I'm using my Lumograph Black pencil because I don't want these details to disappear when I blend, because if I use charcoal pencil, for example, once I blend it to give a more realistic, smoother look, then it will disappear eventually. See, I'm blending it with my brush and it stays there. If I want to darken up some areas, I can definitely dip this small brush into some charcoal and get those results. What we are doing here is just to create the base layer first, and then I'm going to erase a little bit to give the brightest areas the desired look. And then I'm going to blend again so that they look more natural together, all these shadows and highlights. Okay, another thing that I want to mention about hyperrealism, don't try to do the exact same thing. We are not a photocopy machine, right? We are not going to be able to put the exact same skin cell in the exact same location and with the shape. So please don't stress out about this. Just have fun. And here what you see is like there are deeper lines and there are like some more superficial lines. For deeper lines, use a little bit more pressure on your pencil, and for the superficial ones, less pressure. And this is the key supply here, guys: electric eraser. If you have electric eraser, your job is so much easier in hyperrealism. You can see that I'm giving these tiny highlights very easily by using this electric eraser. I'm erasing, I'm blending, and then I'm drawing again, shading, and I'm erasing again, and I am blending. I do this maybe 3 or 4 times, and after repeating this cycle for 4 times, then you will get this realistic looking skin structure. Because by doing this, by erasing, adding more shadow, and blending to get more gray tones, more mid-tones there, you are creating actually this 3D look. I'm doing the same thing in the second part. As you can see, I separated it into 4 parts. I am not trying to see the whole picture at once. I'm just focusing on one part at a time. This is how you don't overwhelm yourself in hyperrealism. You just focus on one area, and your eyes are tuned in that area more so that you can have more focus on getting the light and shadow right, getting the skin cell shapes right. And here I'm adding some highlight with my kneaded eraser. I tore a small part of it and I'm trying to give those small highlighted areas with that. And here you can see that the crevices are much deeper here, so I'm trying to add more pressure on my pencil and maybe having 2 or 3 strokes there instead of 1. And for the areas that are like barely there, I'm just having much less pressure on my pencil. If the blackness of your Staedtler Mars Lumograph Black is not enough, please go over it with your charcoal and then you can go over it with your blending stump to make it look even more black. Among all the blending tools, blending stump will give you the darkest shade, guys. So here the structure was a little interesting. So I had these diagonal shapes, diagonal highlights and some shadows. So I'm adding that detail here. So seeing things as shapes in that small area helps you to focus and helps you to get to the overall result more quickly. And here there was some tiny bit like lines. This is why I'm holding my pencil from very back. And here where the mouth is, the skin cells were a little bit difficult. They were like very tiny and they were not always the same shape. So I figured out some ways that looks like that skin cell on the reference photo. So I made these little tiny lines as much as I could. Then I blended them so they will have some mid-tone. And then I went in with my electric eraser to give the tiny highlights that I see in the reference photo. So on the mouth, this little gorilla had some pores. So these pores were different in shape and it was different in sizes. So I was trying to make them look irregular and they were not evenly distributed. So, and the more important thing is that there were some highlights both above and below of those pores, and this is what I am doing right now with my electric eraser. When it comes to hair, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sections you can see. Why did I divide it into 5 sections if you ask? Because the direction of the hair and the darkness of the hair would change in those areas. For example, here where I'm working on, the hair was much more curly and it was darker than the other places. So I added more charcoal pencil strokes there, and also I made some curly effect with my electric eraser. Here where I'm working on, the hair looked longer and towards up left corner, and also it was a little bit lighter, so I added more eraser strokes than the pencil strokes. So this is how I divided the whole hair situation. This is the thing that I want to tell you. The best way to make realistic hair is to add the hair with your charcoal first. Of course, your pencil needs to be sharpened, and then blend it with a small brush or a medium brush, doesn't matter. And then go in with your eraser, add more highlights to that hair, and then go in with your pencil again, blend it a little bit more eraser, a little bit more pencil till you find the balance. And you will see that in the end, you will have this good mixture of highlighted hair and dark hair. For the background, I used my biggest makeup brush. With circular motions, I added a simple background. I didn't want the background to outshine my gorilla. And here, I want to show you how you can use your blending stump like a gentle, subtle pencil. Here, I'm giving this curvature right here with my blending stump. And if I tried to do that with my pencil, it wouldn't look this natural, guys. So this is the key. If you have some subtle changes, use your dirty blending stump or a Q-tip. And here's a game changer. If you have this ink pen, you can go over the brightest areas and then it will make a huge difference. And for the hair, there are some really white hair. Not everywhere though, don't overdo it. But some areas you will add this hair and it's going to look even more realistic this way. One tip though, if you're using this pen for the hair, after you add this white hair, please go again with your pencil, Staedtler Mars Lumograph Black, and add more hair in between those white hairs, because otherwise it's not going to look natural. And in hyperrealism, what we are trying to achieve is complete natural looking objects, right? So here you will see that I'm adding the hair, but it doesn't look very natural. And towards the end, I'm going to add some pencil strokes and then it's going to blend in. If you want the highlighted areas that you have done with your kneaded eraser pop out even more, you can go over them gently with your white charcoal pencil. I personally not use it very much, but I wanted to show you in this tutorial that this is also an option. Because it's not as bright as a white ink pen, it's going to look more natural. And here is the final result, guys. I hope you find this helpful. Definitely hyperrealism is for people who are patient. This took 4.5 hours. I could definitely work on it more, but hey, my eyes gave up, so I had to. There is a common mistake though usually beginner artists make when they start realism. If you want to learn about it, I'm putting the video right up here. If you like my videos, please don't forget to subscribe. Bye!